Thank you for joining me today, everybody. My name is Morgan Page. I'm a risk advisory manager in our Houston office. Dale asked that I speak a little bit about what we've done to deploy this tool called Predictive Index and how it's helped us build and grow some really amazing teams based on a culture of understanding and sharing our real selves. So to help, I've brought in one of the experts. We have Melanie Shaffer, who is CEO of Talent Suite, a talent strategy firm working with Weaver on applying Predictive Index. So thank you, Melanie, for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me, Morgan.
So just a little bit of background and context on what even started us down this path. So we were building a team in Houston. We'd won some big engagements. We were hiring like crazy. And man, we made some missteps. We had some people that they were just in the place to thrive. And so from that experience, we decided to take a step back and really think through how can we approach this differently. And so we wanted to put together a framework and make sure we were being consistent about our process. At the same time, the firm was investing in this tool called Predictive Index. This was a pilot, and we get sent this 2-question quiz. We kind of rolled our eyes and took 5 minutes to take, and was one of those, it's like, how accurate can it be? But when we got the reports back, we started reading it, and it was amazing. It was one of those moments where you're like, wow, I have these thoughts, or I've been told that I'm like this. And so we looked at each other, and it was a moment of clarity, and we were like, this is going to be it. This is our secret sauce, and this is how we're going to build our team right. And so, Melanie, why don't you give us a little bit of an overview of what Predictive Index is?
Absolutely. Thanks, Morgan. So I love how you're talking about your practice was growing quickly, which is a lot of fun, but also can be really difficult in thinking about how you best leverage people and how you make sure you keep them up on that Navy want to line where you get the most productivity from them. And how we've been working with your RAS team is applying and teaching you to apply the predictive index data to getting the right people in the right work and the right roles to help your managers, like you said, and leaders in that group to understand how to individualize what people need, how to make a language within your culture that builds that accountability, that behavioral accountability, and recognizes people for the things they're contributing. And then within your team, understanding where people have that space for great, as well as using the data to see where you may have some potential gaps and figuring out how you fill those in. Because in public accounting, and we're going to talk about this a little later, there's always the work to get done. And sometimes you don't always have the exact right people to do it, but the work's got to get done. So how do you use the team most effectively to do it together? And this predictive index, data that you spoke about sits in a discipline called talent optimization, which, by the way, Morgan is certified in. And it is a discipline that really helps teams think about where are they trying to go, what's important to them, because that ebbs and flows, that strategy, and how are they measuring results. And then the discipline sits there in the middle. It's the execution through people. So how do you think about putting the right teams in place that align with the work that needs to be done? How do you hire the right people into the organization and internally identify those high potentials for those internal promotions and succession planning? How do you then give them what they need to thrive, as Morgan said? And then that fourth piece is that ongoing, really data that you're collecting, not just from PI to think about building things as you're evolving, but also those pulse surveys to understand engagement and what people need. And companies that deploy that discipline actually end up spending far less time, as you can see, 50% less time dealing with people drama. So Morgan and I like to talk about data, not drama, because people are complex. And what PI helps understand is how is that person driven and how does that align with the work that needs to be done? But what I've always loved about PI is the differentiation in the whole person application. So the PI is how's this person driven and how does that align to the work that has to get done, but also thinking about these fluid pieces of a human, their values, their work ethic, all of these things that can help, compensate sometimes when there may not be some fit to the work, as well as what are they learning? What skills are they gaining? What experience do they have? So Morgan's practice has really taken a holistic approach of thinking about how can we feed all of these using the PI data to understand that piece of the head that sometimes people aren't even self-aware of. Because it's something that sits in a software and everyone in the firm has the opportunity to apply it in this simple, scalable, sustainable format. And really what we're doing here is understanding how to feed people's needs. Because behavior is not something that you can change unless you understand how to meet people where they are, how to give them what they need. So we always say in our practice, behavior is actually a response to a need either being met or not being met. And speaking of needs, Morgan, here is your PI behavioral profile.
Thank you, Melanie. And, just to tell everyone, this is my pattern. There's nothing secret about it. If you know me for more than 10 minutes, you'll look at these strengths and cautions and go, yep, that's Morgan. And so the great part of this, kind of the first step, is really this individual awareness and individual development component. You can see I'm independent, reserved, driven, and precise, which has some great benefits, but also some cautions on it. I'm very analytical and solution focused, which is great for my clients, and that's what they hire us to do. But sometimes on teams, it can make me seem inflexible or a little blunt under pressure. So that's a self-awareness item that I've taken to equip myself with those briefcase items and those skill items to go, I need to make sure that I'm solution oriented internally as well, and build these skills to make sure my team doesn't feel like I'm too blunt or that I'm inflexible. And I share this with my team and I go, hey, guys, gals, when you're working with me, if I get under pressure and I kind of revert to my natural self and I get a little blunt or I get a little inflexible, let me know. I can correct that. I can address that. I don't intend to be that way. And it really helps the team dynamic. One of the other great things that this tool has is a self-coaching report that is very quick to generate. Once you've taken the quiz, you just click a button, it'll kick it out, and it gives you some of those skills. So one of the comments I've had through the years is you need to adjust your management style, or you need to adjust your communication style. And in my head, always a little bit quietly, I would always be like, but I did change it. I just didn't change it right. And so this is a great chart. This is a great tool that helps you understand not only those cautions, but what are some of those tools. So whenever to prevent people to feel like they're being freight trained by me or intimidated, actively seeking input from not just one of them, but from all of them, and creating that openness that really helps defray that feeling and allows us to operate as a better team. So speaking of teams, another great feature that Predictive Index has is this team work styles. And Melanie, can you give us a quick overview of kind of those quadrants we got there?
I absolutely can. So I love this as far as some things Morgan's done with it that he's going to share here. But what we're looking at is within a team, there are 4 cultures of the work that has to get done. And so you have your folks that sit up here that are wired for exploration. And these are our big picture, big idea people that are very driving, very fast moving, don't need a lot of data points to make decisions, love change, but sometimes may say change for the sake of change. So it's good to know that they might actually partner well with someone down here in this producing quadrant, which is actually where Morgan is. And these are our disciplined people that like change, but they like measured change. They're competitive and driving. And so they're going to help the explorers put their ideas into plans. Then we have our folks over here in stabilizing. So if you have people wired for this kind of work, they like to go deep. They are going to be the ones that make things scalable. They're great at implementing. And there can sometimes be friction on teams if we don't have awareness of how we want to operate in these cultures of work between our stabilizers, because these are our risk mitigators, whereas our explorers are people who are just wanting to run out there and try things and solve them as they go. And then finally, we have our cultivators. And these are people that promote internal cohesion, who actually are curious about what everyone on the team thinks. So, all people are valuable in the cultures of work. It's really the awareness of where you fall out and how that impacts other, and where you're going to be best suited for certain types of work on projects.
Thanks, Melanie. And this is a really awesome feature. So some of the things we've done with this that have been really cool is that the individualized career development, being able to understand kind of where you are on this graph and looking at in the next 5 or 10 years, what's going to incorporate in your role, and what are some of those things that may not be natural for you that we really have to make sure we focus on equipping you with those skills to be successful in those roles. Another great one is resolving staffing challenges before we have any issues, or preventing operating friction and conflict. So when we're looking at from a staffing perspective, we have a very highly technical job that we really need to make sure that we show up with a very strong team. This helps us assess who naturally is going to lean that direction. So if it's masses of data and you really have to dig in and make sure it's right and meet the deadline, that's really going to be your producers. But if it's more of, let's make sure that the client has that experience with us. You know, they're less concerned with the time that it's going to take to get it done, but they want to make sure that everybody is on board and that we're very collaborative. That's where your cultivators are really going to come into their own. But, you know, we are public accounting and we can't always field the perfect team every time. And so sometimes we may have a producer and cultivator together on maybe a very producing oriented job, and that can create some natural friction. So having everyone aware of not only where they fall on this chart, but also where the others they work with helps cut a lot of that friction before it ever happens. So you're aware of when that person's pushing me for results and time and deadlines, that they're not doing that just because it's me, that they're doing that's a natural inclination of theirs. And so it's able to give yourself a little bit of grace and give your team a little bit of grace with each other to take a step back. Another great one is just providing that clarity and ownership. So many on my team, we know where everyone kind of falls on the chart. And, you know, if they're down in that stabilizing group and they're really wanting to take on a role or be involved in an activity that's up in that more cultivating area, they know who to go to, who's their subject matter expert for that. And then also with public accounting, sometimes you get roles that they're just not really you, but that we have to do because we need to get the job done or move on to the next. But from a management perspective, you're really able to help your people be sustainable by recognizing that early and then making sure that on the back end, you're able to change their schedule or make sure that they get something where they're able to come back, where they're not in that stretched position that's a little bit uncomfortable for too long. And that really helps us prevent burnout and prevent people from wearing down and leaving. Our whole goal is sustainable for longer. We want them here for forever if we can get them. So this is a hugely beneficial tool for us.
I love the sophisticated ways that you apply this, Morgan, and I especially loved the career management piece of the development you talked about of, you know, hey, in public accounting, there's work that sometimes we have to do because the work has to get done and you're the only person available. But really creating that transparency and trust there and that psychological safety with that person that you recognize this is going to stretch you. We're going to help you get through it. And you give them like a light at the end of the tunnel, you know, hey, in the future, I have you staffed on some projects that are going to be things that, you know, are going to be a lot more suited to what you like doing. So I absolutely loved how you used it in that way.
Well, thank you, Melanie. Well, that's all. We just wanted to give everyone a quick high-level overview. You know, Melanie's the expert in this. I'm still learning from her. I'm available for everybody if you have any questions. I do want to say that even though I did get certified in this, that I didn't start as certified. That was, we saw the value of this immediately, and it was something that several months down the road, it was just so powerful that we just had to know more about it. And so it's not something that requires a certification to apply with your teams or to apply moving forward. But I'm here for any questions you have. Melanie's here for questions and comments. So feel free to reach out, call, email, whatever works best for you.
Thanks, Morgan.
Thank you for coming out, Melanie. And thank you all for listening in.